Well, hey, it's good to see everybody. Just for the next few moments, I'm going to do something a little different. I want to share with you, do some inner work if we could, if everybody's open to that. We're going to do some inner work. These are things that are going to help you in your own life, your personal life, and then also your business, but most importantly, your personal life, because everything is going to flow out of that. And why we're going to do a little something different is because I'm actually going to share something with you that I am currently diving into and working in my own self. I typically wait until I have mastered something and gathered all of the information before I share anything. But I just felt like it was time. I felt like that this could be beneficial for everyone. And so I'm just going to share a little bit from my heart and what I have been dealing with in this season and a few things that I have taken in either through my eyes from reading or my ears from listening that have really impacted me over the last couple weeks. The first one is the difference between when you're succeeding and when things are going great and you're like walking on cloud nine, to the difference of when you feel like you're in the valley and you're kind of drudging through the mud and things aren't working out for you. I never really thought of a process like this, but you realize when you are succeeding and things are going great, you feel really good, but you're not really learning anything, right? You are living in the manifestations of what you learned through that last valley that you were in, right? And so when we're in the valleys, we can get in our heads so much because we're not in the success. But if we stayed here in the success so much, and when I say success, that's whatever you're defining as success. When we stay in success so much, we're not really learning. We're not really moving. We're having a good time. We're by the pool, drinking Mai Tais. We're going to Cabo. We're celebrating. Life is good. And we're like, oh, can we just stay here, please? But we wouldn't. I mean, what use would we be? The people that we need, the people that we're reflecting with, the relationships that we're interacting with are around here. And they're in the process of us going from the valley to the successes. And so I want to encourage you, whether you feel like you're in cloud nine, you're in success, celebrate, awesome, love it. That's a really amazing. And whether you feel like you're in that valley or maybe you're in the in-between, rejoice in the fact that we learn the most about ourselves, about God, about the universe, about people, about our past, about our present, about what we want our future to be when we're in that valley. And so I want you to take a deep breath with me. Just take a deep breath and see what it is that you need to be learning in these next few moments. Not these next few moments, I mean, by the sound of my voice as I'm talking, but just through this whole process. And another thing, a juxtaposition, a thing that I learned was, did you know that there is a difference between, I'm thinking about succeeding in valley, success, failure. I mean, I don't want to call it failure because you don't really ever fail. That there's a difference between self-confidence and self-worth. You with me? Self-confidence and self-worth. Here's the difference. Your self-confidence, it can come and it can go based upon situations. When you finish your 5-1, you've reached your goal weight. You've got that self-confidence, right? You're feeling good, it's strong, you're there. So, the kind of self-worth is there, it's in the background, but your confidence is high. Then you go off and you gain all that weight, and all of a sudden, self-confidence is, you were, I mean, for me, I'm just going to be honest, I was peaked. My self-confidence was high. I was working out. I was banging them weights at the gym. I was going crazy. And then I pulled my back. I hurt my arms. I'm in bed for 6 weeks. And what I was getting good at, what I was doing every single day, I could no longer do. And so my self-confidence came down, right? Here's the difference. If our self-worth is down, we're always going to have that roller coaster if we don't work on that self-worth part. We're always going to strive to find ways to build our confidence because it appears itself to us as self-worth. We can confuse ourselves in thinking that we are worth this because we're doing something, we're performing something. If I have a six-pack, if I have big muscles, if everybody's coming to me for health stuff, if I've lost all this weight, high self-confidence, it's amazing. But what happens if you're not able to do that? If there's a season where you're down, there's a season where you're sick, if there's a season where something's going on, if that comes down, and your self-worth isn't high, and you start feeling down and you start feeling frustrated and you start getting in your head and wondering, do I matter? Is what I'm saying, is anybody listening? That self-worth stays down here. And then when it's a double whammy, when they're both down, it's a bad day. And so one of the things that I am working on, and that you will continue to work on. This is not something that you are going to fix. It's not a problem you're going to solve. This is a tension you're going to manage. Is instead of putting a lot of my energy on this self-confidence, which can happen at any time, you go in and out of it as you're learning things, continuing to put yourself out there. I'm working on this over here, the self-worth part. And what I've realized in this last season is that I actually don't have a lot of self-worth. And that affects the way that I show up for you. It affects the way that I show up for me. It affects the way that I show up for my kids, my wife, any friends, any clients. At times when my self-worth is hanging out down here, it affects who I am, and I'm not able to be who I'm supposed to be, who God created me to be in life. And so I need to work on that self-worth. And one of the biggest things that can affect that self-worth for most of us, which I want to talk about for the rest of the time, is something I'm sure we all deal with, and that is rejection. Rejection is one of the biggest things that can bring our self-worth down. I mean, you think about it. I'm looking at Shelly because she's over here. So if I do that, that's why. But you love watching kids and they're just doing things because they don't have no cognitive category that they can't do this thing, right? London and Justice, they do whack, crazy things that I would never do. Because they don't think, I mean, Justice right now, you guys remember we have I feel like I'm saying it weird, but we wrote a journal and created a journal. I'm like, you guys remember that back in the day when we did that. So we wrote a journal and then we wrote a kids journal. So one of the things that Justice is doing, right, because she saw it, is she is writing a journal. She's been working on it probably for 2 months. I mean, literally, she's going on Google and it's so illegal. She's like copy and pasting pictures she's seeing all over this place. But I'm looking through it and it's like tips to calm down, take a hot bath, go for a walk outside, right? I mean, it's awful. The book is awful. Nobody is buying the book.
I'm gonna buy the book.
She has no idea. She's doing it. Why? Her self-worth is way up here. Why? Because no one around her in her household has told her anything different. And so what happens as we go through life and we grow up and we age, we get rejected. We get rejected and we get rejected. I don't know about your story, but I have been rejected by both my mother and my father. And that is a hard thing to overcome as you journey through life. It is one of the foundational pieces, the two people that are supposed to love and accept you and provide the emotional support that you need. It affects you in a big way. And so when you're going through life and you're tying that to what we do in relationships, offering ourselves, living out loud, connecting with people, we're in service to people. That's the foundation of what I want to say. That's the reason why you were created. It's the reason why we are here. We are here to love people, to be in service to people. I have experienced this before. Let me help you with that experience. I have done this before. Let me help you with that. That's the reason we're alive. We're here to congregate, to connect, to love each other, to multiply, and to be there for one another. And rejection can hurt that. It can tear us down. It can keep us from putting ourselves out there. Part of what we do is sales in a good light. We are selling an experience. We are selling a product. We are selling a future that people want. It's very difficult to fire on all cylinders and to sell in love and to sell transformationally when we are concerned about rejection. When we're selling, just say, or here, we're on the phone, we're selling, but hey, yeah, I got this program. Yeah, I did really good. You might be interested. Or we're online where we do that post from our heart. Then we read it again. We're like, delete, 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 too much. Delete, delete. And so what I want to encourage you with, I hope I'm making my point. What I want to encourage you with is that you can begin. I heard this podcast and I'll share it. I'll put it on the Rising Tide. But you can begin to, which I'm starting to do now, is change my relationship with rejection, right? Because here's the deal. This is what stinks. I want to say sucks. So I'm going to say this is what sucks. I cannot control if any of you reject me.
Yeah, that sucks.
That sucks, right? Dang it, it sucks. Like my cortisol levels are raising right now because one day you might reject me. I'm kidding, but not really. So we can control, however, our relationship with rejection, and we can control the narrative. We can begin to create new neural pathways, what we think about with rejection, that can help us show up as ourselves, as God created us to be, show up for other people. So I want to give you some of those tips and how we can do that. The first one to think about is, what is the very first thing that you think about when rejection comes to mind, or when you are rejected? What is the first thing that you think about? And so for me, it is, I knew it. They found out that I actually don't have what it takes. I'm actually not enough. And they've figured it out. It's been long enough. And I did this and I did that. Same. Yep. Did something wrong. I'm not good enough. You think about what is that very first thing. And then now we need to set up knowledge. We need to set up truth that contradicts that lie, because that is an absolute lie. And you were made for a purpose. You were created for a purpose. And so here's a couple things, right? Some of the ways that we get rejected first, kind of the first step, is family and friends, right? Especially when we're doing things that they don't quite understand, or when, it happens in this business. I talk with clients, I talk with coaches all the time. And once they start growing, or once they start putting themselves out there to serve, they start getting a little rejected by their family. And instead of thinking, oh man, I'm the worst. I'm the worst when I'm rejected. I got rejected. I'm the worst. You think, you know what? I'm the first.
Yeah.
I'm not the worst. I'm the first.
Bring it.
You may be the first one in your household, or in your lineage, or in your extended or immediate family, that has decided that they are going to change their habits. That makes people feel very uncomfortable, especially the people that don't want to change their habits and want to remain the same that they are. Not only your physical habits that they can see, but your mental habits that change the way in which you show up to the world.
Right.
They are not going to appreciate that. Number one, because they're used to the person you were before, not the new person you're all of a sudden becoming.
Right.
You didn't sit down and have a conversation with them and negotiate that you are now going to change. This is who you are going to be, and this is how they need to accept you.
Right.
However, you're not the worst. You're just the first.
That's right.
Right? And you don't need to say it out loud. You don't need to tell whoever is being a butthole. You can just say to yourself,
I'm number one.
You know what? I'm not the worst. I'm just the first.
Yeah.
I'm not the worst in this case. I'm just the first. As a client that you do a health assessment with and they act like a fool and they get all crazy and they think you're doing some scheme and doing all that, that's okay. I'm not the worst. I'm just the first person that they've connected with. and they've decided that it's not, it's not something that they want to do. It's okay. I'm the first. I'm putting myself out there. I'm not the worst. I'm the first.
Yeah.
The next one you want to think of, and I'm going to explain some of these and just say God. But whatever you believe, you can put that in there, whether it's universe, whether it's Buddha, whether it's whoever. I'm just going to use the word God and put in what your beliefs are. So rejection is God's protection over me. I think that to myself. It's easy to remember, right? Rejection. When I'm rejection, I sit in that and I say, you know what? Rejection is God's protection. Rejection is God's protection.
Yeah.
I'm going to take that a step further. This is crazy. This blew my mind when I heard this on this podcast. When you are rejected, then I'm going to tell you this story of this person. When you are rejected, God is hiding your value from that person for a moment, because in this season, they are not attached to your destiny. Does that make sense? So when you're interacting with somebody and you're thinking, hey, this should go good, whether it's a family member or whether it's a client or whether you're at work, whatever it is that you're doing, when rejection happens, that is happening because God or the universe or whomever is holding back from revealing your value to that person because they not are yet attached to your destiny in that season.
Let's go.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty amazing.
Somebody here is happy and they're thinking it's good. But you know why that's good is because it takes personal responsibility and personal rejection off of you.
Yeah.
Because that's what rejection, and as I'm telling you this, I'm learning this. Rejection causes you to go like this. All of the responsibility of every emotion, every feeling, everything of every other person is on me. That's crazy. I'm so good at that. It comes so naturally to me. And that's why it's so important to begin to reflect, what do I feel as soon as I'm rejected, and begin to change your relationship with that. So there was a podcast from Ed Milet. You may have heard this, and I'll share it. But he recently did it with Jamie Kern-Lima, who many of you may have heard of her before, but she's the founder of It Cosmetics. And her story is amazing. She talks about rejection and self-worth, and she's coming out with a new book that you'll be able to hear in this podcast. But this is her story that kind of puts these into perspective. So she was a Denny's waitress. By many people's perception of her, she was a little chunky. She was a little overweight. She wasn't a supermodel by any means. She had rosacea. And so she had this idea. What if I created some safe, healthy products, beauty products that helped hide rosacea and that were good, that didn't cause cancer, that was just good products for people that they could use. She was a Denny's waitress. Didn't come from an amazing family. She was actually adopted as a child. And she just had some grit and an idea inside of her. Long story short, she starts from scratch, figures this thing out, is not in the industry, puts herself in the industry. She starts It's Cosmetics. And she got to a place where they were getting ready to go bankrupt because they took some risks. Anybody here take some risks before? Did some things that were out of their element? They weren't sure. She took some risks in their business and their personal expenses. She only had $1,000 left to her name. They were going to go bankrupt. They were going to end it all. They were going to have to go back, live with their family, do all kinds of stuff. And they had a meeting with a venture capitalist who was going to invest in their product and give them millions of dollars thus forward so that they could continue to go and see if this was going to work in the industry. And they were going to plow through. They were going to give some shares, the majority of the shares over. He was going to give them some cash, and they would be able to continue working on their research and development, continue putting products out. And so they had a meeting, and this was a face-to-face meeting, and they were putting all of their chips in this. And she was at that meeting with her husband, and the gentleman there who was going to invest said, you know what, it's a no for me. I'm sorry. Congratulations to what you've done so far, but it's a no. And she said, what do you mean? Like, you mentioned we have a great product. We've got this far. This has lots of potential. And he just said, you want me to be honest with you? And she said, please, yes, yes. And he said, I actually don't think that anybody is going to buy beauty products from somebody that looks like you. You don't have the image of somebody that should be selling beauty products. Now, this was rejection. This was a pinpoint rejection of something that she struggled with her entire life. Like in my head, my mind is blowing because I'm thinking, dude, I'm out in a second. Like if I'm her, I'm back at Denny's. I'm like, screw this idea, screw these people. Oh my gosh, I'm out of here. And so he says no. She continues to go. She continues to say, I'm not the worst, I'm just the first. Rejection is God's protection in my life. He is hiding my value from this person at this time because my future destiny is not attached to them in this season. Just a few months later, L'Oreal, who's one of the biggest makeup companies in the world, buys IT Cosmetics for $1.3 billion in cash. She had some grit. She changed her relationship with rejection. She was rejected deeply, had no idea what she was going to do. She was in the valley in a season where she needed to learn, where she needed to push through. Had she have given up the majority of the shares of her company to this fella who was not attached to her future destiny, she would not have received the $1.3 billion. At that point, when they made the deal with her, she was the majority shareholder of the company. It's amazing what you can accomplish when your self-worth is high. Mm-hmm. It's like you are invincible. I love seeing it. I mean, you can probably guess my wife's self-worth is so high. It's awesome to see. She's just like my two girls. There ain't nothing she can't do. And it brings me great joy. That's why we're a good match. That's why God put us together. But there's nothing you can't do when you have high self-worth. And the final thing that I want you to say to yourself when you're rejected is that this means I'm brave. This means I'm being brave. When you feel down, you can take your second because you have an emotion when you're rejected. And emotion is energy in motion. And so it has to go in motion and come out, or it's going to stop you up and keep you feeling low. But you just say, you know what, I'm being brave right now. I'm being brave. Maybe other people aren't willing to be brave, but I'm going to be brave because I know that people need this message. I know that people need my message. They need my product, whatever it is that you're doing throughout your day. And I just want to encourage you to reflect a little bit. Maybe this week as you're going through, I personally, let's not assume that everyone is going through a valley, because I don't want to speak that over anybody, but I personally have been going through a valley in the last 6 months. And it's been a time of reflection and learning. And so I'm committing to opening myself up to growing in my self-worth. Because I have some skills, I have some talents. There's lots of things that I'm good at. And so I can make this lever go up like nothing. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's very healthy if when I'm not on a stage speaking, or if I'm not at a gym pumping iron, or if I'm not getting affirmation from people, or if I'm not building something that I'm going to enjoy. If I'm just laying in bed sick, if I pulled my back out and I can't move, if I tore my tendons and I can no longer go into the gym and lift weights, if I'm sitting in the living room with nothing on my schedule playing Candyland with my children, I want to feel really good about myself. I want to have high self-worth. And so I just want to encourage you, inspire you, know that you are unique. There's no one else like you. You were made with a purpose and a plan. And during this, I wonder if it's a good idea. I wondered if this has resonated with you tonight. I wonder if in this season it's a good idea to think about self-worth, not so much your self-confidence, but your self-worth. And that can be the why of why you put yourself out there, of why you share your message, of why you're in service to others. So maybe find out why your self-worth goes up and down. Maybe there's a root cause there. I'm a firm believer in counseling. I've had not that this is a thing you have to do, but I've had the fortunate thing of having the same counselor for about 12 years of my life. And it helps a lot. It helps a lot to think about that, because you shouldn't be a caged up bird in this life, always afraid of rejection. I've done that enough. And I think it's time for our wings to fly, right? So let's fly a little bit.